All right, hello and welcome back. Chase Thomas Podcast, taping this on a Tuesday evening. Dan Mathews of 680 The Fan is here. He is ready to make the case for why the Tennessee Vols were actually the winners on Saturday evening in Athens. That it was one of those moral victories that a lot of people are discounting as to what happened to my Volunteers over the weekend. But Dan, good evening, sir. How are you?
Very well, man. How's everything going with you?
We've had a couple days to decompress and to, get over it and move forward because Mizzou week, we got Eli Drinkwitz, who talked a lot of smack this offseason about the state of Tennessee football and getting some wins back because of probation and stuff like that. And then today he was saying stuff about yeah, we've got some stuff that we've learned from last year that we've got up our sleeve, but we'll tell you after. I don't know. The collection of Eli Drinkwitz and Shane Beamer back to back will be very, very important to me on this very program because co-coach of the year a year ago with Josh Heupel still grinds my gears, Dan, as to how that turned out to be the case. But 11-1, we'll see. College football playoff put them at number 5. As long as they win out, I think the path is okay. I'm feeling okay on Rocky Top. I'm feeling okay.
You should, man. I mean, look, it's no sin to lose to Georgia. I mean, they're the defending national champions. Yeah, they had their down moments at times this year, but at the same time, I mean, they still are a team that has a lot of talent on their side, and they showed it. They put together a hell of a game plan, both offensively and defensively, and they executed it. It was as simple as that. And let's be honest here. I mean, I think while Tennessee's program is far better than the way it was a couple of years ago when they were in Athens, it's still probably not to the level that Georgia is right now. So sometimes, it's kind of like what Kirby Smart said earlier in the season about when they beat Oregon. He was like, we won today because we have better players. That probably was the case in some parts on Saturday. But no, you're exactly right. I mean, you get Eli Drinkwitz, who I'm kind of with you. It's like, Lane Kiffin can get away with the trash talk. He's winning. Eli, you beat LSU in your first season. Aside from almost beating Georgia, what is your highlight at Missouri? It's kind of interesting to me, the battles that he's picking, where remember not too long ago, we kind of thought what an ass Lane Kiffin is for saying the things that he was saying. And people, wanted him to lose. Now people think it's endearing and cute because we know he's a really good coach. So I almost kind of think we're to that point with Eli Drinkwitz of, dude, it's not really cute. You guys aren't winning. So it's kind of corny what you're doing.
Absolutely. But we'll see what happens. They're 20-point dogs on senior night for Tennessee. So I'm not sweating it. Dan, how is Chuck and Chernoff going? You're now you're running the show with the guys over there, Brandon Joseph and Matt and Chuck, obviously, but with Los exiting and with your role increasing, what has that been like thus far for you?
Well, I have to sit next to Brian Hoyt every day, which that's only so high that you can go with that. But no, it's awesome. I mean, Matt and Chuck are awesome. They're the most successful dysfunctional couple I think you can be. Where you got Matt and Matt's a wild card. You got Chuck, where you never know what Chuck you're going to get, which is what we love about Chuck. You never know if you're going to get, just dynamite takes on the Braves, or if you're going to get the Otis Mounds story. That's pretty much what you get. But no, it's awesome. I mean, it's so fun. We got a great group at 680. I think that's what hopefully comes through on the radio, and it's a bunch of dudes that care about each other, and we show up every day, and hopefully us having fun on air translates to the airwaves as well, because if we're doing that, obviously we're doing the right thing.
What's the hardest part about putting this show together for you?
I would say that sometimes it's exactly where do things go. For example, Georgia, you can never talk enough dogs, but it's also, though, at the same time, it's despite what people think of the Falcons, you still have a first place Falcons team. So you got to talk a little bit of Falcons.
Mm.
So it's being able to have enough of your main course, but then also have good side dishes. I mean, because think about it, it's kind of like a show. I almost kind of feel like is going to eat at a nice steakhouse, right? Like
Mm.
our main course is a good steak, and there's different chops of it, but our main thing is steak. But you want to have some good potatoes with it. You want to have some good vegetables with it, a good salad, some good bread, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's the important thing is as well is just not being a situation where it's man, do you guys talk anything other than dogs? Which we do, and obviously we're in the off season, so it's not as much Braves right now. But we would break in a little bit of Braves, but I would say that just the biggest thing, is knowing your hosts. And I know that my hosts, and Brandon knows this as well, and Hoyt knows this. That we know what they want in terms of guests. Why are we having this guest on? We're having this guest on because they can give us, great insight on that topic that normally we wouldn't be able to get from just the guys we have on our shows. So I think that's just the biggest thing is it's really, in a way, kind of like putting together a game plan every day. I mean, you want to be able to script the first 10 plays and be able to come out with a cannon shot and have people when they're getting off work, saying, man, this is awesome. I'm having fun now. Work sucked, but, now I get to sit in, an hour and a half of Atlanta traffic, but at least I'm hanging out with some cool guys.
Absolutely. Can't say that I missed Atlanta traffic since moving up here to Knoxville 3 years ago. Dan, can't say that has been something that I've missed about home.
Yeah, it's not a lot of people who once they get out of it say, man, you know what, I miss sitting on the top end of the perimeter. I mean, those were the days. Yeah, it's one of those that as well as anybody being from here that you gotta be able to map out your days as 75 South's going to be murder at this time, or 85 North's going to be awful at this time. I can't go to Gwinnett County right now. What am I doing?
No, 100%. And now that it's been 3 years, I mean, I graduate from UT in like a month, and it's just I whenever I go back home, it's like I tell my wife, I'm not built for this anymore. It's just I don't know how I did it for so long. Like I was downtown for most of my 20s, so I avoided a lot of it, just bouncing around that way. But I'm just not built for it. You get the anxiety, and I feel like it all just take over again. And I'm just like I cannot. There's no way you could pay me all the money in the world. I don't think I could handle the traffic ever again. I think because people here they'll complain about Kingston Pike, where it's like they were sitting for an extra 5 minutes, and they were like, yeah, I wasn't really moving, and I had to go a back way to work. And it's like that's not what traffic is. It's not what that is. That means you had a minor inconvenience. It's not traffic. There's no traffic in Knoxville.
It's a minor backup, yes. I guess, a little bit of a brake light parade, but you keep moving. So
no, until you've actually had to pee in your car and not just your car in a bottle, because you look at the connector and you realize, oh, I'm not getting out of here. So decisions have to be made. Then you've never really been stuck in Atlanta, dog. Man, well, the Astros, they won it. Your team, the Houston Astros, they won the World Series this past week. My question to you, though, as an up and down series, I know on social media and everything, you were getting a little nervous as the World Series was going on with the Phillies. But now that it's happened, are you surprised that the Astros ended up winning the World Series?
Not really, because as I had told, it's funny. I have a text with some friends of mine from college, and it's called the Astros venting text, which has now, my buddy is the moderator of it. He took it upon himself to change it to the Dynasty venting text, which I appreciate. But I think that the frustration I had with the Braves excuse me.
We're been in Atlanta too long, see?
Yeah, no, yeah.
It's already flipping over.
For sure. But the frustration I'd had with the Astros at times was it's just like, I shudder to quote Jimbo Fisher, but I remember years ago seeing highlights. I think it was from the Showtime reality show they had. And he had a line to his Florida State team where he said, "You stop you, there's not a lot of teams that can say that. And that's the way I felt about this Astros team, because they had outstanding hitting when they hit. The pitching was always really pretty consistent, aside from Game 3 of the World Series, Game 1 of the NLDS, or the ALDS. But I mean, that was there. The defense, for the most part, was there. I don't really remember them throwing the ball around too much, or having any defensive miscues. So that was there. The frustration I had at times with them was exactly what I had told my buddies. Is I said, if they hit, they're going to win this thing. There is nothing the Phillies can do if the Astros hit. And that was the frustration I had with it's weird to get frustrated with Jose Altuve, because the Astros are Jose Altuve. But like, it was just like, damn, man, like, come on, like, let's go. Yordan Alvarez too, who, it's funny. I threw this out on Twitter today of sharing the Yordan Alvarez home run, and I said that was the Jorge Soler moment from last year. Like when Soler hit that home run off Luis Garcia, I think everybody in that stadium knew that's it. And when Yordan Alvarez hit that ball on top of the batter's eye, which nobody does at Minute Maid Park, and he hit that, what was it? A buddy of mine does radio in Houston, interviewed Lance McCullers, and he said that McCullers told him that he looked over to, I can't remember who he said was in the dugout next to him, and he said, "We just won the World Series." Like moments like that, like, are like, dude, that's a backbreaker. Like, you have a guy who's been one of your best relievers in Alvarado come in, and he throws 99, which was not a bad pitch. If you go back and look at it, it was down in the zone. But Yordan Alvarez is Yordan Alvarez, and he just absolutely tattooed that ball. So, I think if the Phillies had won, it would have been a massive upset. And I think that also, too, I think the Astros as an organization and the players, even though they probably wouldn't have said it out loud, you have to start questioning yourself. You have to start wondering, like, damn, are we really meant to win this thing again? I think that it could possibly be a turning moment for the organization in the positive, where I remember John Smoltz years ago talking about how if they had won in 96, he feels like they would have won in 99. They would have won possibly in 2000.
Why?
And you would have been, just because he feels like it would have been another, just kind of, we belong here. We can win here. And he feels like losing to the Yankees kind of gave the Yankees that confidence of, we belong here. We can win here. We've got our core, and we're going to go on the run. And the Yankees did. And the Braves, obviously, we know how the 90s and early 2000s went. But I think that that's something that absolutely is real. I mean, that the Buffalo Bills effect can kind of start to creep in a little bit of, yeah, we're here, but, do we believe we can win this? And I think they answered that with this last series.
What part about this run for them?
I'm sorry?
What was the toughest part about this run for them?
I mean, I think that probably, and look, the thing is, it's got to be relative what I'm about to say, because you don't have like outburst innings in the postseason. Like, you get 2 or 3 runs, that's a hell of an inning. There's very few, 10-9, 9-8 games, something like that. I mean, Game 1 and Game 3 were kind of the anomalies. I mean, Game 1, you had just a couple of really good innings put together at the plate by the Phillies, which the hardest ball hit in those couple of innings was the Alec Boehm double down the left field line. But, I mean, remember Castellanos? It was a pitch down low that he got just enough barrel on to put some soft contact out in the left field. And then even Real Muto's game-tying 2-run double was the same deal. So that was probably the frustrating part. Was it was just like, even like in Game 5, for example, where it just seemed like they had so many opportunities to be able to ice that thing. But the good news is their pitching and their defense were consistent all the way through, because that's the crazy thing about that Game 5 win. Is I was telling a buddy of mine, I said, Mancini doesn't make that play, they probably lose that game. They for sure probably have that game tied up. And if that place would have been going nuts if Real Muto had got on, and something tells me the momentum would have had Bryce Harper hitting the 2-run homer, and that would have just been devastating had that happened. But sometimes, I mean, that's the magic of October, is you make those plays like Mancini did and like McCormick did, And all of a sudden, I think maybe at that moment, the Phillies were kind of like, the magic might be done.
But it wasn't. They won, and that is it's just one of those things too that I think is interesting about this run. And I was talking to Fangraphs John Taylor about this, where a lot of folks were really upset that the Phillies and the Padres were the final two in the NL, where it's like, oh, this is what happens when you expand. It's like the best teams
Mm-hmm.
got eliminated early. This is why you
Sure.
don't do this. And then at the end of the day, the best team all season long ended up winning the World Series. And
Mm-hmm.
last year, the Braves were never the best team in baseball, but they still won the World Series. It was a different kind of
Sure.
deal where I think the main thing that you want if you're in Major League Baseball, if you're a fan, is that there's variety, where some years it might be the best team from beginning to end wins the World Series. Some years it's the fifth best team. Some years it's the second best team. Maybe you want more of the number one more often than not, just to show that, like, hey, if you build the best team, then you'll be rewarded for it. But by and
Mm-hmm.
large, baseball is still like, hey, this is how this is going to go sometimes, is that the Astros have been the best team and they have made it through. They bounced back from the World Series loss the previous year. They even had just so much weird stuff surrounding this team. I mean, we'll see what happens to Gurriel this offseason and Bregman with his finger and Altuve's injury, but it's also like Dusty Baker and Klink just get another 1 year extension just after winning the World
Yeah.
Series, where it's like that signals to me that if they don't win the World Series, they're both out. Based on the 1 year, that I don't know. Do you get the same sense there? Just because, like, 1 year, are we really doing that after another World Series run and just winning the World Series? Is that what we're doing?
Well, I'll start with Dusty first.
Mm,
I think that a big thing with that is, from what I had understood, even before the World Series, talking with friends of mine that covered the team on a daily basis,
mm,
that if Dusty wanted back, he was back. Like that
mm,
that was already determined. He would be back. With Click, I think that it's just kind of some frustration
mm,
at times from the sense that I get is that it's kind of like, go for it, man. Like, you get Christian Vasquez, who was an outstanding addition at the deadline, and you get Mancini. And the funny thing is, Chase, is I brought up the Braves earlier, and maybe that Freudian slip was almost kind of a happy coincidence, because the Braves and the Astros are really pretty similarly built.
mm,
And remember, before that run to the World Series last year, the moves that Anthopoulos made at the deadline, they didn't garner headlines. Like, they weren't like, it was like, you had Jock Peterson, all right, a little bit of pop, but he strikes out a lot, and he was a huge contributor. You add Adam Duvall, who was a huge contributor, and he was an RBI leader in last season. So I get that, but like Jorge Soler, Eddie Rosario, I mean, that those guys were just such huge contributors that I think it's also too, maybe Jim Crane, kind of realized it after the season of, hey, look, I got a guy that can put together a pretty good roster. Is he necessarily the strongest in trades? Maybe not. But what do you necessarily need to add to this team? I mean, you're talking about a team who this offseason, Jim Crane said his first order of priority is to add Justin Verlander. I would be very shocked and surprised if Verlander doesn't get 3 years and, I don't know, 95 million from. If I were the Dodgers, I'd pick up the phone and call them. They're going to
mm,
have money to spend. I would do that. If I were the Rangers, I mean, you need to be able to build that thing up. But at the same time, though, too, kind of, look at the teams that are year in and year out really making the run for the World Series.
mm,
The Astros, despite what people think, are an expertly built team of drafted, controlled, and developed guys through their own system.
mm.
I mean, case in point right now is them being able to tell one of the best shortstops in the league, yeah, we ain't going to give you a bunch of money because we got this kid behind you that's probably not as good as you are. Nobody's going to say that Jeremy Pena is better than Carlos Correa, but you still are able to say, yeah, we're going to go this route. We're going to see how it goes. I mean, the difference is with the Braves, they don't have that behind Dansby Swanson, so I think they are going to have a solution there if Swanson's not back. But I mean, that just shows you, though, like, what these organizations who are going to be around for a while are doing is they're saying, we will give big deals. We won't give massive deals because, I mean, that's the other thing is too, is I think the Astros are pretty similar to the Braves in that mark where it's like, we're not going to tie up 40 million a year in one guy and then try to, slice up the rest of the payroll with, a bunch of guys who are not making as much, whereas you want to kind of have your stars kind of in the same line right there. And that's what Alex Anthopoulos has been able to do. Luckily, most of the core of the Astros is locked up for some time. I think the next real the next real contract of consequence is going to be Altuve in like 24, but I would bet that they probably start working on that next year. So, that's the key, is have your guys locked up for a while, and then, maybe, spend a lot up front to kind of, be able to balance it out towards the end.
Now that it came out that Wilson Contreras, that was almost a deal that got done before the deadline. Like hindsight being 2020, did that make sense? Would that have made sense, and would that have affected this run at all? Are you glad that that did not end up happening, or what do you make of that?
Well, I mean, if you get a Wilson Contreras, you can't turn that down. But I think what was huge with Christian Vasquez was Dusty was not going to come off of Martin Maldonado being his starting catcher.
Hmm.
And I think that the thought was, and I believe it was in that same story, where it was like Contreras probably would not have really been a huge fan, which, look, he's a star starting catcher. That's what you want to be. I can't, begrudge somebody for saying, hey, I want to play every day. That doesn't make you a selfish guy. That makes you a competitor. You want to be out there playing. And not to say that Christian Vasquez didn't want to, but I think he realized, and I think they were pretty honest with him up front of, hey, look, you're going from being the everyday guy with the Red Sox to now getting a chance to go for a ring and being the guy who's not going to be the everyday guy. And he really took, them to heart on that and said, okay, fine. And he accepted the culture that is in that clubhouse, because despite what people will say about the Astros, I think they have proven over the last few years since the revelations of 2020 that it's a great clubhouse of guys that care deeply about each other, and it's a great culture in that room. And I think that it's kind of also understood as well that, hey, man, don't come in here and mess this thing up. So I don't know if maybe somebody got to Vasquez before and just said, hey, man, this is what we got here. And, I understand you're being traded here, but, if Dusty's asking you to take a different role, take a different role. And he didn't seem to mind it. And he fit the role incredibly well. With the struggles at the DH, I would have liked to have seen more of him. But it all worked out in the end. But no, I mean, that was huge because, while you do give up a lot offensively with Maldonado, what he does with that pitching staff is unreal. Every single guy on that staff sings his praises about how he calls the game, how he handles the pitching staff. I mean, you've even seen it as well, that good luck trying to run on him. You don't steal very many bases on this guy. So, I think that would have been something that would have been really tough to take out of the lineup on a daily basis.
Last thing, what will you remember most about this run, Dan? What will stand out the most to you years from now?
Resilience. Resilience. I think that's the biggest thing, is that, in 17, they outslugged everyone. Now, I understand what 17 comes with. Trust me, I understand what the perception is of that title. But it is, game one of the ALDS, and you get them coming back, clawing back, and then that massive 3-run homer, which, by the way, I still contend, if the Astros don't get that from Yordan Alvarez and they lose that game one, I don't know if they win that series. Because remember, game 2 was tightly contested. Game 3 was very tightly contested in 18 innings. So, yeah, they swept the Mariners, but Seattle still, I think, proved to them and saying, hey, we're not afraid of you. And that's dangerous in October in these short series. So you're able to do that. The Yankees, I think, for most of the season, the funniest thing is, Chase, is the people who were telling me that the Yankees were not good were Yankee fans. Brandon Joseph, Keith Ippolito, one of our sales guys, Craig. I mean, they seriously would almost on a daily basis say, I don't know how we're here. We're not good. You guys are going to sweep us. And I'm like, come on, man. You guys have put together some just amazing ninth innings this year, all that kind of stuff. That can translate in October. But the Astros were able to be the better team. And, the Yankees, I mean, if you don't have Aaron Judge going, you ain't gonna have much going, and they didn't, and the Astros were able to win that. And then I think the last part was obviously against the Phillies, because you had a team that I'm sure probably to a man reminded the Astros a lot of that last year's Braves team, and it reminded me of them too. And when they won that first game, that's why I was like, I can't believe this is going to happen again. But then the resilience, bounce back in game 2, bounce back in game 4 to throw that combined no-hitter, outstanding defense late in game 5, and then in game 6 to have Schwarber hit that home run. And the Astros have not been good the last few years at home in the World Series. So I think that maybe with that Schwarber home run, people start thinking, damn it, here it goes again. And you get the 3-run homer, you get the insurance run from Christian Vasquez. So I think that's the thing. I think that this was one that was incredibly well earned, and this was an incredibly resilient group that was able to do this.
I love it. Congrats again, Dan, on it's been a great last couple days for you. LSU beating Alabama, Houston winning the World Series. It's everything's coming up Dan Mathews right now.
It is, man. And my favorite holiday of the year is in 2 weeks. I mean, who doesn't like, as much food as possible and football on a Thanksgiving Thursday? So,
favorite holiday over Halloween and Christmas. All kind of. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I mean, for Christmas now, it's always, mom and dad will ask, hey, what do you want? I'm like, I don't really need anything.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. But no, Thanksgiving's awesome, just in terms of the being fat and happy and watching some football. So no, it's awesome.
Interesting. I'm a big October is tier 1. October. Okay. You're not gonna like this, Dan, because November 1st is when I put on the Christmas tree. So like it's going in the other room. Like
no judgment.
We transition to Christmas. Yeah. Like we're moving past Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving and that is just, I don't know. Black Friday is not my deal. Maybe that was working in a mall when I was in high school. Have just horror stories of just working that. Shout out to all those good folks who can still put up with that at any point. Like everyone should do that once in their life to understand just what it's like and how unimportant all of that is.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's a wild thing working in a mall on Black Friday. I would not wish that on anybody, but I also think it's like one of those good things that everybody should do once. And you'll be like, wow, this is not that serious and we should never do. This was all a mistake. Black Friday was a mistake. Dan, what can the good folks check out from you across the podcast with Chuck and Turnoff? What can the good folks look out from you all across the board this week?
Yeah, so, obviously 11 to 1 every single day. The Southern Sports Today app, you can listen to the Chuck Oliver Show, college football year round. I guarantee you we will be, recapping the college football playoff rankings, the most recent ones that came out. As you mentioned, Tennessee at number 5, so still very much within striking distance. Still got LSU there as well. The memes are starting to come out of, hey, they did it with 2 losses years ago. Maybe they'll do it again. I don't know. We'll see. But
I think you have to win out. I think the way for LSU to get in, I think you have to win 100%.
Out. 100%. That's got to happen, and then you got to pull off a huge win in Atlanta in order for that to happen. So no, I mean there's that. But then also too, just getting ready for this weekend's games. Southern Beat, episode 61, going to drop on Thursday, so we'll have that for you, getting you ready for the weekend's action. And then, of course, Chuck and Chernoff, 2 to 6 every day on the Fan, 680, 93.7 FM, the Fan app. Don't forget about that Fan app. It's incredibly valuable.
There you go. Dan, thank you so much for making the time this evening. I greatly appreciate it. We'll have to check back in again soon.
Oh, for sure, Chase, man. Always great catching up with you, buddy.